Hey there. Tonight, we're going to answer a simple question, one that gets lost behind the smoke of 1,000 gunfights and the thunder of 1,000 stampedes in the movies. What did a cowboy actually do all day? We have this image in our minds, a powerful myth of a man on a horse, silhouetted against a prairie sunset. He is a figure of freedom, of adventure, of rugged individualism. He seems to be a man without a boss, without a schedule, a master of his own destiny. But that image, as romantic as it is a beautiful lie. The life of a real 19th century American cowboy was not how we know it. It wasn't a life of adventure. It was a life of grueling, repetitive, and often mind-numbingly boring labor. He was not a freelance hero. He was a low-wage, migratory agricultural worker in a vast and brutal industry. Tonight, we're going to walk through the seasons of his life, exploring the endless cycle of thankless, dangerous, and essential tasks that made up his year. If this kind of slow, quiet, and detailed history helps you to relax and find some rest, I would be grateful if you'd like the video and subscribe to the channel, but only if these stories genuinely bring you a measure of peace. And as always, I love to see the global community we've built here. Please, feel free to leave a comment and let me know where you're listening from and what time it is in your corner of the world. It is a unique comfort to know we are all settling in together. So, dim your lights, turn on a fan for that steady ambient hum if you find it soothing, get comfortable, and let's explore the long, hard, and deeply misunderstood days of the American cowboy. The world has been locked in the iron grip of a prairie winter, a season of brutal cold, howling blizzards, and a deep, gnawing hunger for both food and sunlight. You have spent the last few months huddled in a cramped, smoky, and foul-smelling bunkhouse, your world shrunk to the size of a single room, your companions the same irritable, unwashed men you've been trapped with since the first snows fell. But now, something is changing. The first sign is the light. It lasts a little longer each day, and it has a different quality, a pale, watery warmth that feels alien after months of grey, oppressive skies. Then comes the sound. The relentless, moaning wind begins to soften. And you hear a new sound, a sound you haven't heard in months. The gentle, persistent drip of melting snow from the eaves of the bunkhouse. The great thaw has begun. The prairie, which has been a vast, dead ocean of white, begins to reveal itself. Patches of brown, dormant grass appear. The creeks and rivers, frozen solid for months, begin to groan and crack, the ice breaking up into great, churning sheets. The air itself smells different. It loses its sharp, sterile, frozen edge, and takes on the rich, damp, earthy smell of life returning. For most creatures, spring is a time of release, of celebration. For you, the cowboy, it is the end of one kind of misery and the beginning of another. The relative inactivity of winter is over. The work is about to begin. And it will be the hardest, most dangerous, and most important work of the year. The trail boss, a man whose face looks like a crumpled leather map of the West, gathers the crew. His mood, which has been as foul and as frozen as the winter landscape, has shifted. There is a new urgency in his eyes, a new sharpness in his voice. He gives the orders. It's time to repair the gear. It's time to gather the horses. It's time for the spring roundup. You spend a week in a flurry of activity. You are mending your saddle, oiling the leather, checking every strap and buckle. You are patching your worn-out boots, stitching your threadbare clothes. You are preparing for the campaign to come. The atmosphere in the bunkhouse has changed. The sullen, quiet resentment of winter has been replaced by a nervous, edgy energy. The work that lies ahead is daunting, but it is also a release from the suffocating confinement of the winter months. You are about to trade the misery of confinement for the misery of exhaustion. And in this world, that feels like a fair trade. The sun is a little warmer each day. The grass is beginning to show a faint green haze. The calves, born during the hardest part of the winter, are getting stronger. The great, brutal, and essential cycle of the cowboy's year is about to begin again. You take a deep breath of the damp, spring air. It is the last easy breath you will take for a long, long time. The spring roundup is the foundational act of the entire cattle industry. It is a massive, chaotic, and incredibly dangerous undertaking. The goal is simple: to scour a vast, unfenced territory and gather the thousands of cattle that have been wandering free all winter, sort them, and brand the new calves. The reality is a multi-week campaign of dust, sweat, and fear. You are part of an outfit, a crew of about 25 cowboys working for a large ranch. Your range can cover several hundred square miles of unforgiving Texas brush country. The cattle, primarily Texas Longhorns, are not domesticated. They are wild, cunning, and fiercely protective of their young. They do not want to be gathered. The trail boss, acting as your general, lays out the plan. The riders are divided into several groups. You will ride out in different directions, forming a great sweeping line that will slowly converge on a central roundup ground. Your day begins at 3:00 a.m. You are woken by the cook. You eat a quick, greasy breakfast in the dark. By the time the first hint of light appears on the horizon, you are in the saddle, your horse prancing with nervous energy. You ride hard. This is not the slow, plodding pace of the cattle drive. This is a high-speed hunt through a landscape that is actively trying to injure you. You gallop through dense thickets of mesquite and chaparral, the thorny branches clawing at your chaps and your skin. You learn to ride low and forward, to become one with your horse, letting its instincts guide you through the treacherous terrain. A misplaced branch can knock you from the saddle. A hidden prairie dog hole can snap your horse's leg. The dangers are constant and immediate. When you find a group of longhorns hidden in the brush, the real work begins. You have to force them out into the open, to push them towards the main herd. They will scatter, they will run, they will turn and charge. You and your horse engage in a violent, intricate dance, cutting them off, turning them back, always pushing them in the right direction. It is a partnership of incredible skill and courage between man and horse. The dust is a living entity. It is a thick, choking, ever-present cloud. It is kicked up by thousands of panicked hooves, a brown fog that reduces visibility to a few feet. It coats your face, your clothes, your horse. It gets in your eyes, your nose, your mouth. You breathe dust from sunup to sundown. It is the taste and the smell of your work. After days of this relentless, sweeping search, the great herd is gathered on the roundup ground. It is a sight to behold, a churning, bawling, and terrifying sea of cattle. Thousands of them, their long horns a forest of sharp, deadly points. The noise is a deafening, continuous roar. Now, the most dangerous part of the job begins: cutting. The herd is a mixture of cattle from your ranch and from your neighbors. You have to ride into the very heart of this dense, volatile mass and separate out the cattle bearing your ranch's brand. This is the work of the most skilled cowboys and the most intelligent horses. The cutting horse is a marvel. It can anticipate a cow's every move. It can spin on a dime, stop in an instant. You, the rider, are a participant in a high-stakes chess game, played at a full gallop, where one wrong move can get you crushed or gored. You hold on, you guide, you trust your horse's instincts. It is a terrifying, exhilarating, and utterly exhausting experience. Once the cattle are sorted by brand, the branding of the new calves begins. It is a scene from a medieval vision of hell. The calves are roped and dragged, struggling and screaming to the branding fire. They are thrown to the ground by the flankers. The glowing hot branding iron is pressed into their hide. The smell of burning hair and flesh is a sickening, unforgettable stench that hangs over the entire roundup ground. The air is filled with the high-pitched, agonized bawling of the calves. It is a brutal, necessary act of commerce, the transformation of a living creature into a piece of property. The roundup lasts for weeks. It is a blur of 16-hour days, of dust, of sweat, of fear, of pain. You fall into your bedroll each night, too tired to even dream, and you rise again in the cold darkness to do it all over again. Your body becomes a roadmap of the work. Your hands are raw. Your muscles ache with a fire that never goes out. Your face is burned by the sun and cracked by the dust. This is the cowboy's spring. It is not a time of gentle rebirth. It is a time of violent industrial-scale labor. It is the hard, dusty, and bloody foundation upon which the entire myth of the cowboy is built. And by the time it is over, you are not a hero. You are just a tired, dirty, and profoundly weary man who has survived the first great test of the year. The roundup has provided not only cattle, but also a new crop of wild horses, or broncos, that have been gathered along with the herd. These horses, descendants of the Spanish Mustangs, are wild, unbroken, and filled with a spirit as vast and as untamed as the prairie itself. They are also essential. The work of a cowboy is impossible without a good horse, and the remuda, the ranch's herd of working horses, must be constantly replenished. Your next job, one of the most dangerous and iconic tasks of a cowboy, is to break these wild horses. You are now a bronco buster. This is not a job for the timid. It is a direct, violent confrontation between the will of a man and the will of a wild animal. It is a process designed not to befriend the horse, but to shatter its spirit, to replace its wild independence with a grudging, fearful obedience. The process begins in a circular corral, the breaking pen. A wild bronco is driven into the pen. It is a beautiful and terrifying creature, its eyes wide with fear and defiance, its muscles coiled like a steel spring. First, you have to get a rope on it. This is a battle in itself. The horse will run, it will kick, it will bite. You are a dancer in this dusty arena, trying to get your lariat over its head without getting your own head kicked off. Once the rope is on, the real fight begins. The horse will pull, it will rear, it will fight with every ounce of its strength. You do not try to overpower it. You use leverage. You use patience. You slowly, inexorably teach it that resistance is futile. The next step is to get the saddle on its back. This is a profound violation to a horse that has never felt the weight of anything but the wind. You approach it slowly, speaking in a low, calm voice. You might sack it out. First, gently rubbing it all over with an empty burlap sack, trying to desensitize it to your touch and your smell. Then, you bring the heavy saddle. The horse will explode. It will buck. It will spin. It will throw itself against the corral fence. You must be patient, persistent. You will try again and again, until the horse, exhausted and trembling, finally allows the strange, heavy leather contraption to be cinched onto its back. Now comes the moment of truth. You must ride it. This is the iconic image of the bronco buster, the man on the back of a wildly bucking horse. But the reality is not a thrilling 8-second ride in a rodeo. It is a brutal, life-threatening struggle for survival. You put your foot in the stirrup, you swing yourself into the saddle, and the world erupts. The horse explodes into a series of violent, bone-jarring bucks. It leaps into the air, its back arched, its head down. It kicks, it twists, it spins. It is trying with every fibre of its being to throw you, the terrifying, alien predator, from its back. Your job is to stay on. You grip with your legs. You find a rhythm in the chaos. You let your body move with the horse, absorbing the violent shocks. You might rake it with your spurs, not out of cruelty, but to encourage it to buck harder, to exhaust its defiance more quickly. You will be thrown, many times. You will land hard in the dusty corral, the wind knocked out of you, your body a collection of new and interesting pains. A bad fall can mean a broken arm, a broken leg, a concussion, or worse. Many cowboys were killed or permanently crippled while breaking horses. But you get back up. You get back on. You do it again and again. You are not trying to hurt the horse. You are trying to teach it a simple, brutal lesson. You are the boss. The process can take days, weeks. Slowly, painstakingly, you replace the horse's fear with a weary resignation. The bucks become less violent. The horse begins to respond to the pressure of the reins. It learns to accept the weight of a rider. You are not creating a willing partner. You are creating a tool. A broken horse is not a happy horse. It is a horse whose wild spirit has been extinguished, replaced by a sullen and often resentful obedience. You have won, but it is a victory that feels strangely like a loss. You have taken a creature of magnificent, wild freedom, and you have bent it to your will. You have made it useful, but you have also made it smaller. As you ride the newly broken horse out of the corral, its movements still stiff and uncertain, you feel a sense of pride in your skill and your courage, but you also feel a quiet, lingering sadness. You are a man of the frontier, a man who values freedom above all else, and your job, in this instance, has been to destroy it. This is just one of the many contradictions you must learn to live with in the complex, and often heartbreaking, world of the cowboy. The roundup is over. The new horses are broken. The herd is gathered. Now, the great work of the summer begins. The cattle drive. Your outfit has been contracted to drive a herd of 3,000 longhorns from South Texas to the railheads in Kansas, a journey of over 1,000 miles that will take 2 to 3 months. This is the iconic image of the cowboy, the long, lonely ride across the open plains. The reality is a grueling, monotonous, and profoundly exhausting marathon. You are at the bottom of the pecking order, a drag rider. Your world for the next 3 months will be the dusty, noisy, and miserable rear of a 3,000 animal parade. The day begins in the absolute darkness of 3:30 a.m. with the cook's gravelly shout of "grub pile." You stumble out of your bedroll, a thin blanket on the hard ground, and into the biting cold. You eat your breakfast, the eternal beans, bacon, and bitter coffee are standing by the fire, the sleep still heavy in your eyes. By the time the sun rises, the herd is already on the move. The cattle walk at a slow, steady pace, covering 10 to 15 miles a day. Anything faster would cause them to lose too much weight, and on the cattle drive, weight is money. Your job at the drag is to push along the stragglers. The mothers with their young calves, the old and weak steers, the lazy and the stubborn. It is a constant battle of wills. You are always shouting, always prodding, always weaving back and forth to keep the tail end of the herd from disintegrating. Your world is a cloud of dust. The fine, choking powder kicked up by 12,000 hooves funnels back to you. It coats your face, your clothes, the inside of your nostrils, the back of your throat. You live and breathe it. It turns your world into a perpetual brown fog. The noise is incessant. It is the constant, lowing, bawling complaint of the weakest cattle, a sound of animal misery that becomes the soundtrack to your life. The boredom is a physical presence. The landscape rarely changes. It is an endless, rolling sea of grass. There is nothing to do but ride and think. You are trapped in the saddle, a solitary prisoner in a dusty, moving jail. Your mind begins to wander. You sing the same sad songs over and over again. You count the cattle. You count the miles. You count the days until this purgatory is over. But you cannot relax completely. The boredom is punctuated by moments of sudden, sharp danger. A calf gets stuck in a muddy creek bed, and you have to dismount and wrestle it out, risking a kick from its frantic mother. A steer, sick with a mysterious ailment, collapses, and you have to leave it behind for the wolves. The day is a long, slow crawl across an enormous empty canvas. You are hot. You are thirsty. You are filthy. You are bored. And you are lonely. At midday, the herd stops to graze. The cook has driven the chuck wagon ahead and prepared a simple lunch. More beans, more bacon, more coffee. You eat quickly, standing up. There is no time for rest. The afternoon is a repeat of the morning. More dust, more sun, more boredom. You watch the sun move across the sky with an agonizing slowness. As evening approaches, the trail boss picks a spot to bed down for the night. The cattle are brought together. You eat your dinner, the same dinner you had last night and the night before, and then your workday continues. You are assigned to the first watch of the night guard. You and another cowboy will spend 2 hours riding in a slow, wide circle around the sleeping herd. The prairie at night is a different world. It is vast, dark, and filled with strange, unnerving sounds. The howl of a coyote, the hoot of an owl, the rustle of something unseen in the tall grass. The cattle are nervous in the dark. Your job is to keep them calm, so you sing to them. You sing low, mournful songs, your voice a small human sound in the great empty darkness. Your singing is a practical tool, a way to soothe the restless beasts, but it is also a way to combat your own loneliness, your own fear. After your 2-hour watch is over, you ride back to the sleeping camp. You crawl into your bedroll, your saddle for a pillow. You are too tired to even take off your boots. You fall into a deep, exhausted sleep, a sleep that will last for only a few short hours before the cook's call wakes you in the dark to do it all over again. This is your day, and you will repeat it, with little variation, for the next 3 months. It is not an adventure. It is a job. It is a hard, dirty, and profoundly unromantic piece of industrial labor, and the only thing that keeps you going is the thought of the town at the end of the trail and the $100 you will have in your pocket. The life of a cowboy is fueled by a diet that is as monotonous, as durable, and as unforgiving as the man himself. You do not eat for pleasure. You eat for function. You eat to acquire the calories necessary to perform another 16-hour day of hard labor. The trail kitchen, the chuck wagon, is a marvel of efficiency, but it is not a place of culinary delight. The master of this domain is the cook, the koozie. He is often a man too old or too broken to ride, but his importance to the outfit cannot be overstated. A good cook can make a hard trail bearable. A bad cook can turn it into a living hell. His authority in the camp is second only to the trail boss. The staples of the trail diet are few. They must be non-perishable, high in energy, and relatively cheap. The holy trinity of the chuck wagon is beans, bacon, and biscuits. The beans are almost always pinto beans. The cook will have a great iron pot of them simmering over his fire almost constantly. They are boiled until they are a thick, mushy paste, seasoned with salt, pepper, and perhaps some chili, if the cook is feeling adventurous. They are filling, and they are your primary source of protein. You eat them for dinner, and you eat the leftovers for breakfast. The bacon is not the crisp, smoky strips you might imagine. It is salt pork, a cheap and incredibly fatty cut of meat that has been cured in a barrel of salt. It can last for months without spoiling. It is so salty that it has to be soaked in water before it can be cooked. The cook will fry it up for breakfast. It's rendered grease, or drippings, carefully saved and used to flavour almost everything else. The bread of the trail is the sourdough biscuit. The cook's most prized possession is his sourdough starter, a living culture of yeast and bacteria that he keeps in a small keg. This mother is carefully protected and nurtured. He uses it to leaven his biscuits, which he bakes in a heavy cast-iron Dutch oven, a versatile pot that allows him to bake by burying it in the hot coals of his fire. The biscuits are dense, heavy, and have a distinctive tangy flavour. They are the primary source of carbohydrates. You eat them with every meal, using them to mop up your bean juice or bacon grease. And then there is the coffee. It is the lifeblood of the cowboy. The cook brews it in a gigantic, blackened pot over the open fire. He uses cheap, often poorly roasted beans, which he boils for a long time. The result is a thick, black, incredibly bitter liquid. There is no filter. You learn to drink around the grounds that settle at the bottom of your tin cup. It is a powerful stimulant, a jolt of warmth and energy that is essential for starting your day in the pre-dawn cold, and for staying awake during your long, lonely night watch. Fresh meat is a rare and celebrated luxury. If the trail boss kills a deer or an antelope, it is a time for feasting. But the most famous and unique dish of the cattle drive is son of a gun stew. When a young calf is injured on the trail and has to be put down, no part of it is wasted. The cook will create a stew from the organs that would not keep well. The heart, the liver, the kidneys, the tongue, and even the marrow gut, the tube connecting the cow's stomachs. All of this is chopped up and boiled in a great pot with whatever spices are available. The result is a rich, flavorful, and slightly unsettling concoction. It is a dish born of necessity and ingenuity, a true taste of the frontier. There are no fresh vegetables. There is no fruit, other than the occasional dried apples the cook might use for a dessert cobbler. The diet is profoundly lacking in essential vitamins. Scurvy is not unknown on the trail, though the prevalence of fresh beef, when available, helps to keep it at bay. You eat your meals quickly, squatting on your heels around the campfire. There is a strict etiquette. You do not complain about the food. To do so is to insult the cook, a man you do not want as your enemy. You eat what you are given, and you are grateful for it. The food is not good, it is not healthy, it is not interesting, but it is hot, it is filling, and it is fuel. It is the stuff that keeps your body going, that gives you the strength to get back in the saddle and face another long, hard, dusty day. In a world of constant hardship, a hot meal of beans and biscuits can feel like the greatest luxury on earth. You have ridden all day under a vast blue sky, but as the sun sets, a change comes over the prairie. A line of dark, menacing clouds appears on the northern horizon. The wind shifts, and it carries with it a sudden, biting cold. The old-timers know this sign. It is a blue norther, a fast-moving cold front that can cause the temperature to drop 50 or 60 degrees in a matter of hours. The easy warmth of the afternoon is a distant memory. The cold that descends upon the plains is a physical, invasive thing. It is a wet, bone-deep cold, driven by a relentless, howling wind. It cuts through your thin wool shirt and your canvas jacket as if they were not there. Your work is not done. The cattle are restless, spooked by the sudden change in the weather and the sound of the wind. The herd must be guarded all night, or they will scatter to the four corners of the prairie. It is your turn for night guard duty. You and another cowboy ride out to relieve the men who have stood the first watch. You will ride in a wide, slow circle around the bedded-down herd for 2 long, miserable hours. This is the loneliest and often the most dangerous job on the drive. The darkness is absolute. The clouds have blotted out the moon and the stars. You cannot see your hand in front of your face. You navigate by instinct, by the feel of the land under your horse, and by the sound of the cattle. The cold is a living entity. It numbs your fingers and toes. It freezes the moisture in your mustache and beard into a mask of ice. You pull your hat down low. You turn up your collar. You huddle deep into your saddle, but there is no escape. The wind finds every seam, every opening in your clothes. You begin to shiver, a deep, uncontrollable shaking that racks your entire body. Hypothermia is a real and constant danger. Your horse is miserable too. It turns its back to the wind, its head hung low. You pat its neck, murmuring quiet words of encouragement. Your survival is tied to this animal. If your horse stumbles and falls in the dark, you could be seriously injured, left to freeze to death on the open prairie. The herd is a great, dark, breathing mass in the center of your circle. They are on their feet, nervous and unsettled. They shift and mutter, their horns clashing in the dark. A stampede is a hair trigger away. A sudden clap of thunder, a flash of lightning, the scent of a wolf on the windiny of these could send them into a blind, unstoppable panic. Your job is to keep them calm. And you do this in a strange and beautiful way. You sing to them. You are not a professional singer. Your voice is rough, off-key, cracked with cold, but you sing. You sing old, sad songs, hymns, mournful ballads. Your voice is not for entertainment. It is for reassurance. The sound of a human voice, calm and steady, has a soothing effect on the nervous cattle. It tells them that a guardian is watching over them, that all is well. So you circle the herd in the freezing dark, your lonely voice, a thin, fragile thread of sound against the howling of the wind. "Oh, bury me not on the lone prairie," you sing, your breath turning to smoke in the frigid air, where the wild coyotes will howl o'er me. The song is a prayer, a lullaby, a cry of loneliness. It is a way of keeping the cattle calm, but it is also a way of keeping yourself sane, of filling the vast, terrifying emptiness of the night with a small human sound. You are cold, you are tired, you are profoundly alone. You are a sentinel, a guardian, a shepherd. You are a man engaged in a quiet, heroic struggle against the cold, the dark, and the ever-present threat of chaos. The 2 hours of your watch feel like a lifetime. You lose all sense of time, all sense of self. You are just a cold, shivering point of consciousness, circling a herd of nervous animals in the heart of a great, freezing storm. When your relief finally rides out to meet you, his shadowy form emerging from the darkness, the feeling is one of almost religious deliverance. You ride back to the faint, distant glow of the campfire. You stumble from your saddle, your legs so numb you can barely stand. You pour yourself a cup of boiling hot coffee. The hot liquid feels like life itself returning to your body. You crawl into your bedroll, pulling the thin blankets over you. You will not get warm, but you will get a few hours of fitful, shivering sleep before you have to rise at dawn and do it all again. You have survived another freezing night on the frontier, and you know, with a weary certainty, that there will be many more to come. The cold, the storms, the stampedestes are the honest dangers of the trail. They are forces of nature, impersonal and without malice. But there is another kind of danger that haunts the long nights, a danger that is quiet, cunning, and human, the rustler. He is not the bold outlaw of the dime novels, the leader of a great gang who rides into your camp with guns blazing. That is a fantasy. The real rustler is a shadow, a whisper, a wolf that walks on 2 legs. He is often a former cowboy himself, a man who knows the rhythms of the trail, the habits of the herd, and the weaknesses of the men who guard it. He knows that a direct confrontation is foolish. His work is done with stealth and patience. The threat of rustlers adds a new layer of tension to the drive. It turns the vast, empty prairie from a place of natural danger into a place of human menace. Every distant rider on the horizon, every strange campfire in the night, becomes a potential threat. Suspicion begins to poison the air. The trail boss becomes even more vigilant. He changes the night guard rotation frequently, so no predictable pattern can be established. He warns you to be wary of strangers who ride into your camp, claiming to be lost or looking for work. They might be scouts for a rustling outfit, gathering information about the size of your herd, the number of your men, and the quality of your horses. The work of the rustler is simple and effective. They work at night, during the darkest hours, often during a storm when the wind and rain mask the sound of their movements. They will ride quietly to the edge of the herd. They do not try to steal hundreds of cattle at once. That would be too noisy, too difficult. Instead, they will skillfully and silently cut out a small group of cattle, maybe 10 or 20, from the main herd. They use their expert knowledge of cattle behavior to ease the animals away without spooking the others. They are ghosts. You can be riding your circle on one side of the herd, singing your lonely song, while on the other side, a small piece of your boss's fortune is melting away into the darkness. You don't discover the theft until the morning count. The trail boss will ride through the herd, his eyes sharp, his face a grim mask. He has an almost supernatural ability to sense the size and shape of the herd. He will announce that you are short. 20 head. Gone. A cold fury settles over the camp. You have all worked for months, enduring incredible hardship, to get this herd to market. These cattle are not just animals. They are the physical embodiment of your labor, your sweat, your suffering, and someone has just stolen a piece of it. The trail boss might decide to send a few men out to look for a trail, but it is often a hopeless task. The rustlers are professionals. They know how to cover their tracks, how to drive the stolen cattle over rocky ground where they will leave no trace. They also know how to alter a brand. A hot iron and a bit of creative artistry can turn one ranch's brand into another's, making the stolen cattle impossible to identify. The loss is more than just financial. It is a violation. It creates an atmosphere of paranoia. You start to look at your fellow cowboys with a new, suspicious eye. Is it possible that one of your own men is in on it? A disgruntled rider who is feeding information to the rustlers in exchange for a cut of the profits? Such betrayals are not unheard of. The trust that binds your small, isolated community together begins to fray at the edges. The night guard duty, which was already a miserable and lonely ordeal, now becomes a tense, nerve-wracking vigil. Every shadow seems to hold a man. Every snap of a twig sounds like a stealthy footstep. You ride with your hand resting on the butt of your pistol, your eyes straining to pierce the impenetrable darkness. You are no longer just guarding against the wildness of nature. You are guarding against the cunning and greed of your own species. The rustler is a constant, invisible threat, a human wolf that preys on the edges of your herd and your sanity. He is a reminder that the greatest danger on the frontier is not the beast with horns or the storm with teeth, but the man with a quiet horse, a long rope, and a heart as dark as the moonless prairie night. It happens on a night as black as the inside of a coffin, a thick, starless dark that presses down on the world with a suffocating weight. The moon is a forgotten memory, and the stars, those familiar, friendly beacons in the prairie's vast emptiness, are smothered behind a thick blanket of clouds. The only light in the entire universe is the faint, distant, and utterly fragile glow of your own campfire, a tiny, singular spark of orange a mile behind you, a reminder of a warmth and safety that feels a world away. You are on the last watch, the one just before the grey promise of dawn, a time known to cowboys as the graveyard watch. It is the time when exhaustion is no longer a feeling but a physical weight that settles deep in your bones, when the world seems to be holding its breath in anticipation of either a new day or a final end. You are riding your slow, familiar circle around the great, sleeping mass of the herd. The cattle are a vast, dark shape that breathes as one, a living landscape of dormant power. The only sound is the rhythmic, comforting creak of your saddle leather and the soft, deliberate thud of your horse's hooves on the damp earth. This horse, a weary veteran of 1,000 such nights, knows the job as well as you do. Your voice is a raw, tired whisper, a low and mournful hum as you sing a song about a lost love in a town whose name you can no longer quite remember. The song isn't for the cattle, not really. It's for you. It's a thread of sound to anchor your consciousness, to keep your heavy eyelids from surrendering to the profound desire for sleep. Then your horse stops. It doesn't just stop, it freezes mid-stride, becoming a statue of living tension beneath you. Its head, which had been lolling low with fatigue, comes up with a snap. Its ears, which had been lazily swiveling, pivot forward and lock, rigid and focused on a single point in the darkness ahead. Its nostrils flare, pulling in a scent that is alien to the night. It has sensed something that your dull, human senses have not. You fall silent, the half-formed lyrics of your sad song dying in your throat. Your right hand, acting on an instinct older and sharper than thought, goes to the cold, worn grip of your Colt pistol. You rein the horse to the side, breaking the circular patrol, and you listen, straining to hear past the blood pounding in your own ears. At first, there is nothing but the whisper of the wind moving through the prairie grass, a sound as constant and natural as breathing. You tell yourself it was nothing, a prairie dog startled from its burrow, a trick of the exhausted mind. Then you hear it. It is a sound that does not belong in the pastoral symphony of the night. A soft, unnatural sound, a muffled, metallic click. The distinct sound of a shod horse, a horse wearing iron shoes, stepping on a loose rock, and the sound came from the wrong direction. It came not from the empty prairie around you, but from within the dark, silent mass of the herd. A cold dread, immediate and absolute, washes over you. It is a physical sensation, like icy water injected into your veins, prickling the back of your neck and tightening the muscles of your stomach. This is not a wolf whose padding steps are silent. This is not a coyote whose yelps would have announced its presence. This is something else entirely. This is the predator who walks on two legs and thinks with a cunning mind. Your first instinct is to pull your horse back, to melt away from the herd and dissolve into the deeper darkness of the open prairie. You are trying to become invisible, to erase your presence from the landscape. Your heart is pounding a frantic, brutal rhythm against your ribs, a drumbeat of terror. You know, with absolute certainty, what you are supposed to do. The trail boss's orders are clear. If you encounter trouble, do not engage. You ride back to camp, fast and quiet, and you wake the others. That is the smart thing to do. That is the safe thing to do. That is how you stay alive. But there is no time. The sound was too close. By the time you could fetch help, they would be gone, and a portion of the herd you have bled and sweat for would be gone with them. And beyond the lack of time, there is a stubborn, foolish pride that burns in your gut. This is your watch. These cattle, this entire sleeping enterprise worth thousands of dollars, is your responsibility. To run would be to fail. The thought of facing the trail boss in the morning, having to admit that you let thieves make off with his property on your watch, is a shame almost as terrifying as the threat lurking in the darkness. With a finality that feels like stepping off a cliff, you make your choice. You swing your leg over the saddle and dismount, keeping the warm, solid bulk of your horse between you and the herd. You whisper a soft command to it, a familiar sound it has been trained to obey, telling it to stand. You pull your pistol from its holster. The heavy, balanced weight of it is a small comfort. You pull the hammer back with your thumb. The sharp, oily click of the action being cocked sounds like a cannon shot in the profound silence, a sound so loud you are certain they must have heard it. You begin to move on foot, slowly, cautiously, towards the place where you heard the sound. You are a ghost, your worn boots making no sound on the soft, damp earth. The darkness is so complete that you are navigating by a combination of instinct, memory, and the looming, darker-than-dark shape of the herd to your left. Every nerve is on fire. You can feel the collective, warm, breathing presence of the cattle, and you can sense the alien intrusion within it. You see a flicker of movement, a shape that is darker than the surrounding darkness, a subtle disruption in the black tapestry of the night. It is a man on horseback, moving with a slow, deliberate confidence, quietly cutting out a small group of steers, easing them with gentle pressure toward the outer edge of the main herd. He is a rustler, and as your eyes adjust, you see he is not alone. To his right, another dark shape detaches itself from the mass, and then another. There are three of them, working with a silent, terrifying efficiency. You are one man. You are outmatched, 3-1. The smart move, the only rational move, is to retreat, to run, to save your own skin. The cattle are not worth your life. But a hot, righteous anger, a fury at the sheer violation of it all, surges through you and overwhelms your fear. The audacity of these thieves, stealing the product of your labor, the sweat of your brow, the very minutes of your life that you have traded for this herdit, is an unforgivable trespass. You raise your pistol, your arm surprisingly steady. You extend it, using both hands to brace it, and take aim at the center of the nearest dark shape. You do not shout a warning. You do not announce your presence with a challenge. This is not a duel of honor on a dusty town street. This is a clandestine war in the dark. This is an extermination. You fire. The muzzle flash is a blinding, instantaneous sun that shatters the absolute darkness, burning an image onto your retinas. The roar of the .45 is a physical blow, a concussive wave that slams against you. For a single, eternal split second, you see the entire scene illuminated in stark, brilliant, and horrifying detail. The shocked, pale face of the man you shot at, his mouth open in a silent "oh" of surprise, the wide, terrified, rolling eyes of the cattle nearest him, the other two rustlers, their heads snapping toward you, their faces masks of alarm and fury. And then the world erupts into absolute chaos. The cattle, jolted from their collective sleep by the deafening gunshot, explode into a singular, mindless panic. The ground begins to tremble, then to shake violently, as if in the grip of an earthquake. The air is filled with the sound of 1,000 terrified bellows, a rising, thundering roar of pure animal terror. It is the beginning of a stampede, the most feared event on the trail. The other rustlers are firing back. Muzzle flashes bloom in the darkness like deadly, ephemeral flowers. You hear the sharp crack and high, vicious whistle of bullets passing your head, so close you can feel the air part. You drop to the ground, pressing yourself flat against the trembling earth, firing back at the flashes, with no idea if you are hitting anything or simply sending lead into the night. The stampede is upon you. The cattle are no longer individual animals, but a single, unstoppable entity, a black, thundering river of death, pouring through the darkness with the force of a flash flood. You scramble away, crawling backward on your hands and knees, desperately trying to get to your horse. You can hear the rustlers shouting to each other, their voices thin and panicked, their plans ruined, their only thought now to escape the chaos they have helped create. You find your horse, its eyes wide with terror, its body trembling, but it has held its ground as trained. You grab the reins, leap into the saddle with a surge of adrenaline-fueled strength. By now, the other cowboys, woken by the fusillade of gunshots, are riding in hard from the camp, shouting, firing their own guns into the air. Their shots a desperate attempt to create a wall of noise to turn the stampede, to steer the tide of panic. The night is a nightmare of noise, confusion, and raw terror. You are riding for your life, your horse stretched out in a full gallop, caught in a hellish no-man's land between the rustlers' bullets and the crushing, trampling hooves of the stampede. You ride alongside the thundering herd, adding your own yells to the cacophony, trying to push the leaders, to force them to turn and begin to circle, the only way to stop their mindless forward plunge. The fight is over in minutes, though it feels like a lifetime. The rustlers, under the perfect cover of the chaos they instigated, have vanished into the night like the phantoms they are. The stampede, through the combined, desperate efforts of the cowboys, is eventually turned. The panicked run slows to a trot, and the herd is brought back under a semblance of control, milling about in a state of nervous exhaustion. The sun, indifferent to the night's horrors, begins to rise, casting a pale grey light on a scene of devastation. Several cattle, the victims of the initial panic, lie trampled to death, their bodies twisted at unnatural angles. As you ride through the now settled herd, you find the body of one of the rustlers, lying near where the first shot was fired. His horse is gone. His face, pale in the dawn light, is frozen in a look of profound surprise. You shot better than you thought. A wave of nausea washes over you. You are alive. Back at the newly made camp, one of the men hands you a tin cup of scalding coffee. Your hands are shaking so badly you can barely hold it. You have faced the shadow in the dark, the faceless predator of the trail, and you have survived. But as you stare into the black liquid, you feel no pride, no sense of victory. You are not a hero. You are just a tired, terrified man who has been brutally reminded that the long, cold night of the frontier is full of predators, and that the most dangerous ones, the ones that bring the true darkness, look just like you. After 3 long, grueling months, after 1,000 miles of dust, fear, and endless, aching monotony, you see it. Your first glimpse isn't of a promised land of green hills or flowing rivers. It is something far more alien and potent. It is the smoke, not from a single campfire, but from a dozen coal-fired train engines, rising in thick black plumes into the impossibly vast and clear Kansas sky. The acrid smell, a bitter incense of progress and power, reaches you on the wind, cutting through the familiar scents of cattle, dust, and sweat. It is the end of the trail. You have reached a cattle town, a place like Dodge City or Abilene, a raw, violent, and beautiful scar carved into the face of the prairie. And the feeling that washes over you, a tidal wave that scours the exhaustion from your bones, is one of almost religious ecstasy. It is the feeling of deliverance. The herd, A great, flowing river of bone and horn that has been your entire world is driven the final few miles towards the great stockyards that sprawl beside the gleaming railroad tracks. The air here is a cacophony of sound and smell. The panicked bellowing of 10,000 longhorns, the sharp crack of whips, the shouts of men, and the deafening hiss and clang of the steam engines. Here, under the scrutinizing eyes of men in clean, dark suit-scattle buyers from Chicago with soft hands and cold eyes, the animals are counted and sorted. Your job, the sacred, brutal duty that has defined your every waking moment, is done. The great river of cattle has reached its destination, and you watch as they are prodded up ramps and into the waiting slatted cars, their journey ending to feed a distant, hungry nation. The trail boss, a man whose face is a leathery map of 100 such journeys, meets with the buyer in a small office. Through the grimy window, you see ledgers opened, figures tallied, and then the transfer of a great sum of money. And then comes the moment you have been dreaming of for 1,000 dusty miles, a vision that has sustained you through stampedes, river crossings, and the crushing loneliness of the night watch. You get paid. One by one, the trail boss calls you forward. He looks each of you in the eye, a silent acknowledgement of the shared hardship. He hands you your wages for 3 months of relentless labor. It is a thick stack of cash, a mix of greenbacks and coins, totaling maybe $100. To a modern man, it might seem a paltry sum, but to you, it is a fortune beyond reckoning. It is more money than you have ever held in your hands at one time. It feels heavy, powerful, real. The weight of it in your palm is the weight of your own survival. A moment ago, you were a poor, dusty, and exhausted laborer, little more than a beast of burden yourself. Now, holding this tangible proof of your endurance, you are a king. And with that payment, the iron discipline of the trail dissolves. You and the other cowboys are released, set loose upon this strange and potent new world. You are free. You ride into the heart of the cattle town, and it seems like a vision of paradise, a fever dream made real. The town is little more than a single wide street, churned to a muddy pulp by wagon wheels and horse hooves. It is lined with raw, unpainted wooden buildings with false fronts that reach for the sky, trying to project an image of permanence they do not possess. Every other door opens into a saloon, a gambling hall, a dance hall, or a brothel. It is a town built for a single, voracious purpose: to separate a cowboy from his money as quickly, efficiently, and thoroughly as possible. And you, filled with the raw power of your wages, are eager to be devoured. Your first stop is an establishment promising hot baths. You pay $1 an exorbitant sum, a full day's wage on the trail for the unimaginable luxury of a tub of steaming hot water and a rough bar of real soap. You sink into the water with a groan that is part pain, part pleasure. You soak for an hour, scrubbing away the layers of dirt, sweat, alkali dust, and grime that have become a second skin over the last 3 months. You watch with a kind of detached fascination as the water turns from clear to grey, then to an opaque, murky black. It is a baptism, a ritual cleansing, a washing away of the trail and the man you were forced to be. Next, you seek out the barber's pole. You sit in a real chair as the barber lathers your face and neck. The feeling of a sharp, clean razor on your skin, scraping away the itchy, matted beard, is a luxury so profound it is almost painful. The clean snip of scissors in your hair, trimming away the tangled mess, feels like shedding years of hardship. You look at your reflection in the mirror and see a stranger, a younger, cleaner version of yourself, the harsh lines of the trail softened. Then, with the last of the trail's grime gone, you march to the general store. You are overwhelmed by the sheer volume of goods, the colours, the textures. You buy a new set of clothes from the skin out. Not the rough, durable denim and canvas of the trail, but a fancy plaid shirt, a new pair of trousers, and a flashy vest of embroidered silk. You spend a week's wages on a new pair of boots, their leather unscuffed and smelling richly of the tannery. Outside, in a final act of transformation, you strip off your old, stinking, lice-infested trail clothes and throw them into the dusty street without a second glance. You are a new man, reborn in soap and textiles. And now, you are ready to see the elephant, the quintessential cowboy term for experiencing all the temptations the town has to offer. You push through the swinging doors of the first saloon. The assault on your senses is overwhelming. After the profound silence and monotony of the prairie, the noise is a physical blow. The tinny, cheerful pounding of a piano, the roar of 100 conversations, the clinking of glasses, the shuffle of cards, the click of billiard balls. The air is thick with the smells of cheap whiskey, stale beer, cigar smoke, and the cloying perfume of the dance hall girls. The light, from dozens of oil lamps, is dazzlingly bright. You belly up to the long, polished bar and order a whiskey. It is not the raw, corrosive rotgut of the trail camps, but smooth, aged bourbon. It feels like liquid gold sliding down your throat, a warmth that spreads through your chest and out to your fingertips. The exhaustion, the loneliness, the gnawing fear of the last 3 months begins to melt away in a warm, golden haze. You have another, and another. You stumble into an eatery and order a real meal. A thick steak, fried in butter until it sizzles, a mountain of fried potatoes, and a slice of apple pie. The food is so rich, so intensely flavorful, so profoundly different from the endless, gritty diet of beans, bacon, and hardtack, that it is a revelation. Each bite is an explosion of sensation, a confirmation that you have returned to the world of the living. The town becomes a glorious, intoxicating blur of pleasure and sensation. You find yourself at a faro table, a game of pure, exhilarating chance. You lay your hard-earned dollars on the green felt with a reckless, joyful abandon. The stern discipline of saving, of conservation, is a distant memory. Here, money is for spending, for burning, for turning into fleeting moments of thrill. You go to the dance halls where you pay a dance hall girl 10 cents for a waltz. She is painted and weary-eyed, but she smiles at you, and the brief, formal touch of a woman who doesn't smell of dust and despair is an intoxicating experience that makes your head swim. You are alive. You are free. You are rich. This is your reward. This is heaven. This is the glorious, shining promise that pulled you through the darkest nights and the longest days. But it is a fool's paradise, a heaven built upon the foundations of hell. This entire town, every cheerful piano tune, every welcoming smile, is a carefully designed and ruthlessly efficient machine for separating you from your wages. The whiskey is cheap to make but sold at an outrageously inflated price. The card games are often rigged, presided over by professional gamblers, tin horns, who can spot a naive, newly paid cowboy from 100 paces. The affection of the women in the brothels and dance halls is a commodity, their brief warmth and feigned interest bought and sold by the minute, their smiles fading the instant your money runs out. You are a man who has been systematically starved of every form of human pleasure and comfort, and you are now gorging yourself at a banquet of vice. You have no resistance, you have no discipline. The same stoicism that allowed you to endure the trail now leaves you defenseless against this onslaught of temptation. You drink with a desperate, unquenchable thirst. You gamble with a foolish, wide-eyed optimism, certain that your luck will turn. You spend your money as if it is an infinite, magical resource, frantically trying to buy back the life, the youth, and the joy that the trail has stolen from you. The night dissolves into a chaotic, loud, and ruinously expensive blur. Logic and caution are drowned in a sea of alcohol. You get into a senseless, drunken fight over a card game, or a misunderstood glance. It's not a noble duel, but a clumsy, pathetic scuffle of thrown punches and overturned tables. You are unceremoniously thrown out of the saloon, landing in a heap in the muddy street. You stagger through the darkness, from one den of iniquity to the next, until your consciousness finally gives out. You wake up the next morning in a dusty, foul-smelling alley, your head pounding a brutal, unforgiving rhythm against your skull. Your body aches, and a deep, sickening dread pools in your stomach as your hand searches your pockets and finds them utterly, devastatingly empty. The $100 is gone, vanished. It took you 3 months of brutal, back-breaking, life-threatening labor to earn it. It took the town of Dodge City less than 48 hours to take it all away. You are broke. You are profoundly hungover, and you are filled with a deep, bitter, and corrosive sense of shame and regret. The brief, glorious feeling of being a king has been utterly extinguished, replaced by the familiar, cold reality of being a poor, desperate man. The dream is over. The town, which seemed like a shining paradise just a day ago, now looks cheap, tawdry, and cruel in the harsh light of morning. Its pleasures are revealed as hollow, its promises as lies. There is nothing left for you here. With a heavy heart, you trudge back to the general store and sell your fancy new clothes for a pittance, just enough to buy a meal. You find a trail boss, a different one, who is already gathering a new, smaller crew for the long, quiet ride back to Texas. He sits on a porch, whittling a piece of wood. He looks at you, at your new but already stained clothes, at the profound shame in your eyes. He doesn't say a word. He has seen this exact scene play out 100 times. He nods slowly and signs you on. You ride out of town, heading south, back into the vast, empty and crushing silence of the prairie. The noise and lights of the town fade behind you. You are no longer a king. You are a cowboy again. You have seen the elephant, and you have been trampled by it. This is the brutal, repeating cycle of your life. A year of hard labor and privation for a weekend of glorious, self-destructive, and ultimately hollow release. It is a kind of freedom, yes, but it is the freedom of a beast of burden, forever walking in a circle, mistaking the end of the trail for a destination, never realizing it is just the beginning of the same path all over again. And so, the cattle drive ends, and another begins. The cowboy, the great, iconic figure of American freedom, rides back into the wilderness, his pockets empty, his heart full of a quiet, familiar ache. Was he truly free? Or was he just a different kind of slave, bound not by chains but by the endless, open horizon? The myth of the cowboy is a powerful one. He is the self-reliant individual, the master of his own destiny, a man who lives by his own code in a land without laws. He is the embodiment of the American spirit. But the reality, as we have journeyed through tonight, was something else entirely. The real cowboy was a low-wage, migratory worker in a vast, brutal and capitalist industry. He was a man who endured incredible hardship, extreme weather, constant danger, and profound loneliness for $30 a month and a lungful of dust. His life was not one of adventure, but of monotony. His freedom was the freedom to be poor, to be cold, to be hungry, and to die an anonymous death on a vast, empty plain. His story is not a romance. It is a labor history. It is the story of the anonymous, expendable men who fueled the great post-Civil War economic boom, who drove the herds that fed the growing cities of the East, who created immense wealth for the cattle barons of Texas and the investors of London, and who were left with nothing but their saddle, their scars, and their songs. Tonight, as you settle into the profound comfort and safety of your own bed, think of him. Think of the young man, huddled in his thin bedroll on the frozen ground, singing a quiet, mournful song to a herd of nervous cattle, his voice a tiny, human sound against the great, howling silence of the American night. Think of the quiet courage, the sheer endurance it took to live that life, day after day, year after year. The cowboy is the ghost that haunts the American imagination. But let us remember him not as the heroic gunslinger of the movies, but as he truly was. A lonely rider, a working man, a survivor. His story, stripped of its myth, is a more powerful, more poignant, and more deeply human story than any legend. It is the story of a man who faced the vast, raw, and indifferent heart of a continent, and for a brief, flickering moment, made it his home.